Alexander Kane was in the middle of firing someone when a little girl walked into his board meeting. At 35, Alexander had built Kane Enterprises through decisive action and zero tolerance for inefficiency. He didn't do sentiment, didn't do second chances, and absolutely didn't do disruptions during important board meetings where he was about to terminate an underperforming employee. The quarterly review meeting had been tense. Sarah Mitchell, one of his project managers, had missed 3 consecutive deadlines due to what her supervisor called personal issues. Alexander didn't care about personal issues. He cared about results, and Sarah wasn't delivering them. "Ms. Mitchell," Alexander had begun, his voice cold and professional. "Your performance over the past quarter has been consistently below standard. Given the pattern of missed deadlines and incomplete projects, I'm afraid we have no choice but to terminate your employment effective immediately." That's when the conference room door opened and a little girl walked in, clutching a worn teddy bear. She couldn't have been more than 4 years old, with curly blonde hair and big blue eyes that scanned the room full of suited executives before landing on Sarah. "Mommy!" she called out, relief flooding her small face. Sarah went pale. "Lily, oh my God! Mrs. Chen was supposed to watch you. How did you get here?" "Mrs. Chen's phone was making a scary noise and she fell down, and I got scared, so I came to find you like you showed me." Lily's voice was matter-of-fact, but tears were forming in her eyes. "The nice lady at the desk helped me find which room." Alexander watched Sarah rush to her daughter, checking her over frantically while speaking rapidly on her phone, presumably calling emergency services for the neighbor who'd apparently had some kind of medical episode. The board members shifted uncomfortably, clearly unsure whether to leave or stay. "We need to pause this meeting," Sarah said desperately, holding Lily close. "I need to make sure my neighbor is okay and figure out what to do with Lily." "The meeting will conclude as planned," Alexander said coldly. "You're being terminated regardless of personal circumstances. Security will escort you and your daughter out." That's when Lily pulled away from her mother and walked directly up to Alexander's chair. She looked up at him with those impossibly large eyes, clutching her teddy bear tighter. "Please don't fire Mommy," she whispered, her voice small but clear in the silent conference room. "She's trying really hard. She works all night when I'm sleeping and she cries sometimes because she's worried about me. She loves her job. Please give her another chance. It's almost Christmas." Alexander stared at this child who'd just walked through his defenses with 6 words and a teddy bear. Around the conference table, he could see his board members looking away, suddenly fascinated by their documents. "Lily, baby, it's okay," Sarah said, trying to pull her daughter back. "Mr. Kane has made his decision. We need to go." But Lily didn't move. She kept her eyes locked on Alexander. "My daddy left because he said Mommy and me were too much trouble. Are you going to make her leave too? Because she needs this job. We need this job." "Please, sir. I promise I'll be good and I won't interrupt her work anymore." Something in Alexander's chest cracked. This child was standing in a room full of executives begging for her mother's job, blaming herself for circumstances far beyond her control. He thought about his own childhood, about the single mother who'd worked 3 jobs to give him opportunities, about the bosses who'd never given her a break when she needed one. "Everyone out," Alexander said suddenly. "Meeting adjourned. Miss Mitchell, you and your daughter stay. Everyone else, leave. Now." The board members filed out quickly, grateful to escape the awkward situation. When the door closed, Alexander looked at Sarah properly for the first time in months. Really looked at her. She was perhaps 30, clearly exhausted, wearing a professional outfit that had been carefully maintained but was starting to show age. Her hands shook slightly as she held Lily, and there were dark circles under her eyes that spoke of countless sleepless nights. "Sit down, Ms. Mitchell," Alexander said, his voice softer than before. "And please tell me what's actually been going on. The real story, not whatever filtered version your supervisor has been giving me." Sarah sat, settling Lily in her lap. "My ex-husband left us 18 months ago. He was supposed to pay child support but disappeared instead. I have full custody of Lily, which I'm grateful for, but it means I'm on my own. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, watches Lily after daycare until I can get home, but Mrs. Chen is elderly and apparently just had some kind of episode. I've been taking work home at night, trying to keep up, but Lily's been sick recently and the medical bills have been piling up and I'm just so tired. Her voice broke. I'm sorry. I know you don't care about excuses. I just wanted you to know I've been trying. Why didn't you tell anyone you were struggling? Because I need this job desperately, and I thought if I asked for accommodations or admitted I was having trouble, I'd be replaced by someone without complications. Someone easier to manage. Sarah looked down at Lily. I can't afford to lose this position. The health insurance alone is what's keeping us afloat. But I understand your decision. I've failed to meet expectations. Alexander looked at Lily, who was watching him with a mixture of hope and fear. How old are you, Lily? 4 3/4, she said solemnly. I'll be 5 in February. And what's your teddy bear's name? Mr. Buttons. Mommy made him for me when I was born before Daddy left. She says Mr. Buttons will always protect me even when she can't be there. Alexander felt another crack in his carefully constructed walls. Ms. Mitchell, I'm not going to fire you today. But we need to make some changes. Sarah's eyes widened. Sir, first, we're getting you flexible hours so you can start later and work from home when needed. Second, you're getting a raise to cover proper childcare instead of relying on an elderly neighbor who clearly can't handle emergencies. Third, you're going to start being honest about when you need help instead of quietly drowning while pretending everything is fine. My company needs employees who communicate, not martyrs who suffer in silence. I don't understand. Why are you doing this? Because your daughter walked into a board meeting and had the courage to ask for what you wouldn't ask for yourself. Because she said, please don't fire Mommy. And I remembered every time my own mother came home crying from jobs where nobody cared that she was doing her best against impossible odds. Alexander looked at Lily. And because it's Christmas, and a very brave little girl reminded me that numbers on spreadsheets represent actual people with actual lives. Lily smiled, a bright, beautiful smile that transformed her worried face. Does that mean Mommy gets to keep her job? Yes, your Mommy gets to keep her job. And Lily? You're a very good daughter for trying to protect her. But grown-up work problems aren't your responsibility, okay? Your job is just to be 4 3/4 and love your teddy bear. Mr. Buttons says thank you, Lily whispered. After ensuring Mrs. Chen was stable and being cared for by paramedics, Alexander arranged for his driver to take Sarah and Lily home. But that evening, he found himself reviewing Sarah's actual work output rather than just the deadline reports. What he found shocked him. Brilliant project plans, innovative solutions, detailed documentation that far exceeded standard requirements. The work was exceptional when it was completed. The missed deadlines were because she was effectively doing the work of 2 people with half the support. The next day, Alexander called Sarah into his office. I reviewed your projects. You're not underperforming. You're overperforming with insufficient support. I'm assigning you an assistant and redistributing some of your workload. I'm also moving you to a position with more flexibility and better compensation. Consider it a promotion. Sir, I don't know what to say. Say you'll take better care of yourself so your daughter doesn't have to walk into board meetings to advocate for you. Alexander allowed himself a small smile. She's quite persuasive, by the way. Future lawyer, perhaps. Over the following months, something unexpected happened. Alexander found himself checking in on Sarah's projects not just professionally but personally, asking about Lily, ensuring the flexible arrangements were actually helping. Sarah thrived with proper support, quickly becoming one of his most valuable project managers. And Lily, who'd been terrified the day she'd interrupted the board meeting, started visiting the office occasionally when childcare fell through. She'd sit quietly in the break room with her coloring books, and Alexander found himself stopping by to see her drawings, to hear about her day, to make sure she was okay. You know people are talking, his CFO mentioned one day. They say you've gone soft since the Christmas meeting, that you're showing favoritism. Let them talk, Alexander said. Sarah Mitchell's team has exceeded every target since I gave her proper support. That's not favoritism. That's good management. I was the one showing favoritism before, favoring employees without complications over employees who needed flexibility to excel. 6 months after Lily walked into his board meeting, Alexander found himself having dinner with Sarah and Lily at a casual restaurant, allegedly to discuss a project, but really just enjoying their company. Lily showed him her kindergarten artwork. Sarah shared stories about work challenges she was actually managing now, and Alexander realized he'd been lonely for years without admitting it. "Why did you really give me a second chance?" Sarah asked after Lily had fallen asleep against her mother's shoulder. "Because your daughter had more courage in her little finger than most of my executives have in their entire bodies. Because she looked at me and said, 'Please don't fire Mommy,' and I remembered every time I wished someone had shown my own mother that kind of mercy." Alexander looked at the sleeping child. "And because I'd become the kind of boss I would have hated growing up. Someone who saw employees as numbers rather than people. Lily reminded me there are humans behind those numbers, people with lives and struggles and children who need them. She talks about you constantly. Asks when we can visit Mr. Kane. She thinks you're a hero for saving me. I'm not a hero. I just stopped being a villain." Alexander hesitated, then spoke the truth he'd been avoiding. "Sarah, I'd like to see you outside of work. Not just as your boss, but as someone who admires how you've handled impossible circumstances, who enjoys your company and your daughter's company, who wants to be part of your lives if you'll let me." Sarah looked at him with surprise and something that might have been hope. "You want to date a single mother with a complicated life and a 4-year-old daughter who already loves you more than is probably wise?" "I want to be with the woman who raised a child brave enough to walk into a board meeting and advocate for her mother, who taught her daughter to say please and to care about others even when facing her own crisis, who works overnight to provide for her child while maintaining integrity and excellence." Alexander smiled. "The complicated life and wonderful daughter are features, not bugs." A year after Christmas changed everything, Alexander proposed to Sarah in his office, the same conference room where Lily had whispered, "Please don't fire Mommy." Lily was there, of course, holding Mr. Buttons and wearing a new dress Alexander had bought for the occasion. "I have a question for both of you," Alexander said, kneeling down to Lily's level first. "Lily, would it be okay if I married your mommy and became your family? I promise to take care of both of you, to read you bedtime stories, to always listen when you need to talk, and to never forget that you're the brave girl who saved your mother and taught me what actually matters." Lily threw her arms around his neck. "Yes, I want you to be my daddy. The real kind, not the kind who leaves." Then Alexander turned to Sarah, pulling out a ring. "Sarah Mitchell, you walked into my company as an employee. Your daughter walked into my meeting as an advocate. You both walked into my heart and taught me that the most important decisions aren't made in boardrooms, but in the small choices to show mercy, to offer flexibility, to see people instead of just productivity. Will you marry me and let me spend forever proving I can be the partner and father you both deserve?" Sarah said yes through happy tears, while Lily cheered and insisted Mr. Buttons was very happy too. The wedding 6 months later was small but meaningful. Lily served as flower girl, wearing a dress she'd helped design, carrying Mr. Buttons in a small basket. When the officiant asked who gave this woman to be married, Lily shouted, "Me and Mr. Buttons do! Because Mr. Kane is nice now and he makes Mommy smile." In his vows, Alexander spoke words that made everyone cry. A little girl walked into my board meeting on the worst day of her mother's professional life and had the courage to whisper, "Please don't fire Mommy." 6 words that changed 3 lives. Sarah, you raised a daughter brave enough to advocate for what she needed, compassionate enough to care about a neighbor's emergency, trusting enough to ask a stranger for mercy. That tells me everything about who you are. Lily taught me that behind every employee is a human story, that flexibility isn't weakness but wisdom, that showing mercy doesn't diminish authority but defines it. I was a successful CEO before I met you. You've made me a good man. I promise to honor that transformation every day, to be the partner who supports your dreams and the father Lily deserves, and to never forget that the best business decision I ever made was listening to a 4-year-old with a teddy bear who changed my life at Christmas. The CEO who'd been about to fire someone when a little girl, interrupted, had discovered something more valuable than any quarterly profit. That sometimes the bravest thing we can do is ask for help. That mercy transforms both the giver and receiver. And that the most important meetings aren't about spreadsheets, but about seeing the humanity in each person who walks through our doors. He'd learned that lesson from a child who whispered, "Please don't fire Mommy." And he'd spent every day since proving that Christmas miracle had changed him forever. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below about a time when a child's words changed your perspective. Your stories inspire us all,